My wife changed the locks on the cabin and told the town I was losing my mind. I stood on my own porch with a key that no longer fit. She thought a chrome deadbolt could erase my name. She forgot I still had the deed. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Frank. I'm 68 years old, and this is what really happened. Late October in northern Michigan doesn't ease you in. It bites first. While the pines hiss in the wind and the lake slaps the dock posts like it's annoyed you showed up. I stood on the cabin steps with my old brass key pinched between two fingers. That key had opened this place through blackouts, blizzards, and 40 summers of family noise. I slid it into the lock anyway, even after I noticed the shine. It didn't turn. It didn't even seat right. The deadbolt was new, chrome, clean, too proud for a weathered pine door. I tried again, slower, and like patience could negotiate with metal. Behind me, a car door shut. Soft, controlled. The sound came from the gravel driveway, where my wife's SUV sat like it belonged to her alone. Linda. Frank, don't make this a scene. Me. I'm not making anything. I'm trying to get inside. She walked up with her hands in her pockets, jacket zipped to the chin. No apology on her face. Just a practiced calm I'd seen at parent-teacher conferences and church committee meetings. Linda, I changed the locks. It's for safety. The words landed like a slap that didn't leave a mark. Safety. Not love. Not respect. Just a reason that sounded good out loud. I looked at her, then at the lock, then at my own key. My reflection warped in that polished chrome. Old man. Outsider. Visitor. Me. Whose safety? Linda. Mine. And everyone's. You've been mixed up lately. Mixed up. That was the new label. A neat little ribbon she could tie around my name. So the air smelled like wet wood and iron. Pine needles stuck to my boots. My knuckles ached from the cold and from holding back what I wanted to say. This cabin wasn't a vacation home to me. It was where I taught our daughter to fish, where we watched fireworks over the water on the 4th of July, where Linda once cried in my arms after her mother passed, face pressed into my flannel like it was the only safe place left. Now she stood between me and the door like a bouncer. Linda. You can stay in town tonight. The motel by the diner. I already called. I heard the humiliation before I understood it. She'd made arrangements. She'd decided I belonged somewhere else. A couple drove by slow on Lakeshore Road. The neighbor, Ron, gave a small wave like he wasn't sure I'd wave back. Linda lifted her hand and smiled, warm and easy. The kind of smile that tells people you're the problem without ever saying it. I didn't argue on the porch. I didn't beg. And I just nodded once because pride is its own kind of shelter. Me, I'll get my things. Linda, I packed a bag. It's in your truck. Of course it was. She'd already touched my clothes, already sorted my life down to what fit in a duffel. I walked to my pickup and opened the driver's door. The seat smelled like old leather and the peppermint gum I chewed on long drives. On the passenger side sat a gray bag, zipped tight, like a mouth that didn't want to talk. Inside it were 3 flannels, 2 pairs of jeans, my blood pressure pills, and the framed photo of our daughter at her high school graduation. Not the photo of us, not the one from our wedding. Just her. The safest story. Linda's voice floated from the porch. Linda. Frank, please. Don't make this harder. I leaned on the steering wheel and let the windshield frame her in the rearview mirror. She looked small against the door, But her decision was huge. 40 years with a person teaches you their habits. My Linda didn't improvise. She planned. She planted stories in other people's heads and watered them until they grew. And she'd been watering this one for a while. In the glove box, under an old Walmart receipt and a spare set of fuses, was a manila envelope I hadn't opened in years. It was stamped from the county clerk's office, the paper edges gone soft from time. Across the top was a notation I remembered by heart. County Court Record number 1991-PR-04217, certified copy, signed by Notary Public M. Mo Haskins. I didn't pull it out. Not yet. I just let my fingers rest on the envelope, like touching it could remind me who I still was. Some people think humiliation is loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a new lock, a smile to a neighbor, and a bag packed for you. I started the engine. The heater coughed warm air that smelled faintly of dust. I watched the cabin light glow behind the curtains, and I realized I wasn't locked out of a building. I was being locked out of my own name. I was being locked out of my own name. The motel sat behind a pancake diner off M33. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner trying to erase old smoke, and the heater kept losing the argument. I carried my duffel in with one hand and my pride with the other. The clerk slid a key card across the counter like men my age checked in alone every night. Clerk, breakfast is 6 to 9, no smoking. Me, I'll survive. My room smelled like starch, cheap soap, and somebody else's aftershave. But I opened the curtains anyway. A parking lot light poured in, hard and white, bleaching the bedspread. My phone buzzed before I'd even loosened my boots. Daughter, Megan. Dad, where are you? Me. In town. Your mom changed the locks. The pause told me Linda had already worked the room. Megan. She said you showed up without telling anyone. Megan. She said you've been having trouble lately. Trouble. Mixed up. Different word, same cage. On me. What trouble? Megan. You forgot Cody's game. Megan. You called me Michelle. Megan. And the bank text thing scared Mom. I exhaled through my nose. The soap smell turned sharp, like a warning. Me. The game got moved. I didn't send money. I reported it. Megan. Dad, please don't argue. Megan. She's scared. And I've noticed things. That hurt, because it sounded like her, not Linda. Me. Is this about me or the cabin? Another pause. Longer. Not Megan. Can we talk tomorrow, all three of us? Megan. Pastor Jim said he'd sit with us. Pastor Jim. A church office. Soft voices. Hard decisions. Me. No. Megan. Why? Me. Because I'm not signing anything in a church office. The reply came back fast, like she was repeating a line she'd been handed. Megan. Mom said you'd say that. I set the phone down. My hands still smelled faintly of pine, like the cabin had branded me even from the porch. And the next morning I drove toward the lake, not to fight the lock, but to see what Linda had started. At the gas station by the bait shop, Ron and his wife Tessa stepped in behind me. They smelled like laundry detergent and cold air. Ron. Morning, Frank. Me. Morning. Tessa. Linda said you're taking it easy. Tessa. We're praying for you. Praying for you. The Midwest way of saying, we heard. Me. Tell Linda I'm doing fine. Ron's eyes flicked past me down the road, felt like he didn't want to be seen in the wrong conversation. Ron. She's just worried. Ron. You know how it is. Folks get older. Things get complicated, complicated. Another word for manageable, another word for controllable. Me. Lake Association still meeting next week? Ron shifted. Ron. Yeah. Linda's been pretty involved. So she'd moved from my marriage to my reputation. Efficient, public, quiet. I left before my temper gave her a headline. There's one place in a small county where stories have to be written down. The courthouse sat on the square, with a flag snapping in the wind. Inside, the air smelled like paper, dust, and warm toner. Honest smells, recorded smells. At the county clerk's window, a woman with silver hair checked my license. Clerk. Franklin H. Mercer? Me. That's me. Me. I need the property file for a cabin on Lake Wilcox. Me. Every recorded document tied to that parcel. Her eyebrows lifted, and just a touch. Clerk. You having a dispute, Mr. Mercer? Me. You could call it that. She slid a request form toward me. Fresh ink, clean edges. I filled it out in block letters, the way men do when they're trying not to shake. She read the address, then looked up again. Clerk, that place hasn't changed hands in a long time. Me. I know. Clerk. Give me a few minutes. As she disappeared into the back, I understood the difference between Linda and me. And she could change a lock overnight. She could change minds in a week. But she couldn't change what was stamped, filed, and recorded. But she couldn't change what was stamped, filed, and recorded. The clerk returned with a thick folder bound by a metal fastener. The edges were worn, like it had been handled carefully over the years. Clerk. Parcel 14-227-009, Lake Wilcox Shoreline. Clerk. You're listed as sole grantee. Sole grantee. 2 words. Quiet. Steady. Stronger than any argument. Oh, she laid the documents out across the counter. Warranty deed. Tax statements. A probate transfer from 1991. The paper smelled faintly of dust and ink, the kind that lingers long after signatures dry. I ran my finger down the line where my name sat alone. Franklin Henry Mercer. No and spouse, no joint tenancy, no survivorship language, just me. Clerk. This was transferred through probate court after Harold Mercer passed. Clerk. Looks like County Court Record number 1991-PR-04217. I nodded once. Me. Can I get certified copies? Clerk. Of course, there's a fee. Me. I'll pay it. She stamped the first page with a heavy seal. The sound was firm, final, paper claiming its place in history. The date caught my eye again. 1991. 2 years before Linda and I renewed our vows at that little chapel near Traverse City. Back then, when my Uncle Harold had pulled me aside on the dock. Uncle Harold, Frank, you're a good husband. Uncle Harold, but always keep one thing in your own name. I'd laughed at him, told him I wasn't planning on war. Uncle Harold, no one plans for it. The clerk slid the certified copies toward me, each marked and embossed, signed by a notary public with today's date. Clerk. Anything else, Mr. Mercer? Me. No, this is enough. Outside. The wind carried the smell of lake water and fallen leaves. I stood on the courthouse steps and let the cold hit my face. I wasn't confused. I wasn't forgetful. I was prepared. The humiliation from the porch shifted into something steadier. Not anger, not revenge. Position. I drove past the cabin without turning in. Linda's SUV was parked at an angle like she owned the view. Curtains drawn. Dock empty. I kept going. There's a small law office 2 blocks off Main. Brass plate. Oh, frosted glass. The kind of place where disputes get handled without shouting. Inside, the air smelled like old carpet and coffee. Diplomas lined the wall. Michigan state law. Receptionist. Do you have an appointment? Me. Not yet. She studied my face, maybe measuring the urgency. Receptionist. Mr. Halpern can see you in 15. I sat in a vinyl chair and placed the certified copies on my lap. The paper felt heavier now. Not just proof. Leverage. When the attorney called me in, so he didn't waste words. Halpern. What's going on? Me. My wife changed the locks on my cabin. Me. She's telling people I'm not fit to manage it. He leaned back slightly. Halpern. Is it marital property? I slid the deed across his desk. Halpern scanned the first page, then the probate record, then the certification stamp. Halpern. No, it's not. He looked up at me, measured and calm. Halpern. Mr. Mercer, as this cabin is solely yours. Halpern. If she changed the locks without your consent, that's a problem. Me. Criminal? Halpern. Potentially unlawful entry. At minimum, civil liability. Halpern. More importantly, she has no authority to refinance or add anyone. I thought about Megan, about church meetings, about careful smiles. Me. What if she's telling people I'm mentally unstable? Halpern's tone sharpened. Just Halpern. Has any court declared you incompetent? Halpern. Any guardianship filed? Me. No. Halpern. Then words are just words. He folded his hands. Halpern. What do you want to do? I considered that carefully. A younger man might have said, sue. A louder man might have said, confront. Me. I want to wait. Halpern's eyebrow lifted. On Halpern, waiting can be strategic. Me. There's a lake association dinner next week. Me. She's been speaking for us. A faint smile touched his mouth. Halpern. Bring the certified copy. Halpern. Don't argue. Just document. As I left his office, I understood something my uncle had known. Control doesn't come from raising your voice. It comes from knowing the ground under your feet. Linda had changed a lock. I had something she never bothered to check. When I had something she never bothered to check. The bank vault downtown still used a physical key. No retina scanners. No drama. Just a narrow hallway, beige carpet, and a steel door that hummed faintly when it opened. The air inside smelled like paper and cold metal. The teller recognized me. Teller. Morning, Mr. Mercer. Safe deposit? Me. Yes, ma'am. She handed me the small brass key attached to a plastic tag. Number 312. Same number it had been for 3 decades. We walked into the vault together. Rows of metal boxes stacked from floor to ceiling. Quiet as confession. She pulled out my drawer and set it on the narrow shelf, teller. Take your time. When she stepped away, the silence pressed in. I slid the box open slowly. Inside were things Linda had never asked about. My father's army discharge papers, a faded photo of Uncle Harold standing on the dock, shirt open, laughing. And beneath them, a second envelope, thicker, older, and sealed with the original probate stamp. I lifted it out and felt the weight of it. Paper can feel like nothing, or it can feel like a foundation. I broke the seal carefully. There it was again. The deed. The original. Not the county's copy. Mine. The ink had bled slightly into the fibers over time. Harold Mercer to Franklin Henry Mercer. Sole ownership. Inheritance through probate court. At the bottom, the raised seal from 1991 still held shape. Signed before Notary Public Martha Haskins. On County Court Record number 1991-PR-04217. Harold had insisted I keep this separate. Uncle Harold, marriages are good, Frank, but paper is better. Back then, I'd rolled my eyes. Linda and I had been strong. We'd built a house in town together, survived layoffs, raised Megan through braces and prom night, and a broken wrist from cheerleading. But the cabin had always been mine first, and Linda had always known that. That's what made this different. And I slid the original deed back into the envelope and added the certified copy from the clerk's office. 2 versions of the same truth. Old proof and new proof. Then I sat there a moment longer. Memory has a smell. It's cedar and lake water and charcoal smoke from July 4th grills. It's the echo of Megan's laughter bouncing off pine walls. This place wasn't just square footage. It was lineage. When I locked the safe deposit box and handed the key back to the teller, I felt something settle inside me. Not anger. Clarity. Outside, the temperature had dropped. Wind came sharp off the water. I drove straight to the cabin this time. Linda's SUV wasn't there. The chrome lock still gleamed like a challenge. I didn't try the old key again. Instead, I walked the perimeter slowly. The dock, the shed, the woodpile Harold and I had stacked years ago. I ran my hand along the side wall. The pine boards were rough under my palm, splintered in places. Familiar. Well, there's something about touching what you own that steadies you. Not possession in the greedy sense, but stewardship. Linda had changed the lock. She hadn't changed the foundation. I stood there long enough for a neighbor to notice. This time it was Tessa walking her dog. Tessa. Frank, you okay? Me. I am. She hesitated, then stepped closer. Tessa. Linda said you've been making big decisions alone. Tessa. Selling things. All moving money. Me. Did she say what things? Tessa shifted the leash. Tessa. Just things. That was the pattern. Vague accusations, emotional shading, enough smoke to suggest fire. Me. Tessa, did you ever see me sign anything about this cabin? She blinked. Tessa. No. Me. Because there wasn't anything to sign. I didn't elaborate. Didn't need to. She studied my face differently this time. Less pity, more curiosity. Tessa. There's the association dinner Friday. Are you coming? Me. Wouldn't miss it. Her eyes flicked to the door, then back to me. Tessa. Linda's been organizing. Of course she had. Linda liked platforms, church luncheons, school fundraisers, community meetings, a room where she could speak and be nodded at. She believed narrative beats documentation. Sometimes she was right, but not this time. As I drove away, I called Megan. She answered on the second ring. Megan. Dad? Me. Friday night. Lake Association dinner. Oh, I'll be there. Megan. Mom said you shouldn't come. It might be stressful. Me. Stress isn't the problem. She didn't respond. Me. Bring Cody if you want. It's his lake, too. Silence lingered between us. Megan. Dad. Are you okay? I looked out at the water through my windshield. Me. Better than I've been in days. Because humiliation fades when you understand the paperwork. And locks don't matter when your name is carved deeper than the door. And locks don't matter when your name is carved deeper than the door. Friday came in gray and cold. The kind of Michigan evening where the sky looks unfinished. The Lake Association dinner was held at the Township Hall, a low brick building with folding chairs and a coffee urn that never quite empties. The parking lot was already half full when I pulled in. Linda's SUV sat near the entrance. Clean, centered, intentional. I stayed in my truck a minute, watching people move through the glass doors. Neighbors, retirees, couples who'd spent decades arguing over dock permits and shoreline erosion. Community is a fragile thing. It can be warmed or weaponized. Inside, the air smelled like baked ham and instant coffee. A long table held casseroles in aluminum trays. Someone had set out pumpkin pie early. Linda stood near the front, holding a clipboard. She looked composed. Navy sweater, pearl earrings, the version of her that always did well in public. When she saw me, her expression shifted, brief surprise, quickly covered. Linda. Frank, I didn't expect you. Me. I live here too. A few heads turned. Not sharply. Just enough. Megan stood near the dessert table, Cody at her side. My grandson gave me a small wave. Megan didn't. Linda stepped closer, lowering her voice. Linda, this isn't the place. Me. You made it the place. She inhaled through her nose, and then smiled again as Ron approached. Ron. Frank, good to see you out. Out, like I'd been kept somewhere. Me. Wouldn't miss it. Linda tapped her clipboard lightly. Linda. We were just discussing maintenance costs for winter. Linda. Some cabins aren't being managed properly. A subtle glance in my direction. A seed planted in open soil. I didn't interrupt. I took a seat halfway back, near the aisle, placed the folder on my lap. Brown leather. Zipped. The meeting began with routine updates, shoreline regulations, dock repairs, a reminder about property taxes due before December. Then Linda stood. Linda. Before we close, I'd like to address a concern. Linda. There's been some confusion regarding the Mercer cabin. Confusion. The word again. Linda. Frank's had a difficult year. Linda. We're working through some memory issues. Linda. For everyone's safety, I've taken steps to ensure the property is handled responsibly. A murmur moved through the room. Not loud, not cruel, just sympathetic. Megan stared at the floor. I felt the weight of 40 years compress into a single breath. Linda continued. Linda. We're looking at restructuring ownership so it stays in the family. Linda. It's about protection. Protection. I stood up. Not quickly, not aggressively. Just stood. Me. May I say something? The association president, a retired judge named Whitaker, nodded. Whitaker. Go ahead, Frank. I walked forward slowly. The floor creaked under my boots, every step deliberate. Linda's jaw tightened. Me. I appreciate concern. Me. But confusion and ownership aren't the same thing. I unzipped the folder. The sound cut through the room cleaner than a shout. I removed one certified copy and handed it to Judge Whitaker. Me. County Court Record number 1991-PR-04217. Me. Certified last Tuesday. Signed by Notary Public. He adjusted his glasses and read. Linda didn't move. Me. The cabin was transferred to me through probate before my marriage was renewed. Me. It has never been marital property. Another copy went to Megan. Her eyes scanned the page. Her posture shifted slightly. Subtle, but real. Me. No refinance can happen without my signature. Me. No ownership restructuring is possible without my consent. Linda's voice came out tighter now. Linda. Frank, this isn't necessary. Me. It is when my name is questioned. Judge Whitaker cleared his throat. Whitaker. The document appears valid. Whitaker. Frank is sole owner of record. No drama, just fact. That's all I needed. I didn't accuse her, didn't list grievances, didn't mention the motel. I simply closed the folder. Me. I don't have memory issues. Me. I have paperwork. A few quiet chuckles surfaced. Not cruel, just the sound of tension breaking. Here's Linda's smile faded fully this time. For the first time all week, she wasn't leading the room. She was standing in it. She was standing in it, not directing, not shaping, just standing. Linda's fingers tightened around her clipboard. The pearls at her ears caught the fluorescent light, sharp and pale. Linda. Frank, no one said you weren't the owner. Whitaker glanced up from the deed again. Whitaker. It was implied. The word hung between them like a mirror neither wanted. Megan stepped forward, still holding her copy. Megan. Mom, you said you were adding me to the title. Linda didn't look at her. Linda. We discussed options. Me. Options require signatures. I kept my voice level. Calm is louder than anger when the room expects shouting. Ron shifted in his chair. Ron. Linda, you told us the bank was reviewing paperwork. Linda's eyes flashed. Linda. I was protecting this family. There it was. The justification. I walked a little closer, but not into her space. Me. From what? She met my eyes finally. Linda. From instability. I let that word sit. Let people measure it against the papers in their hands. Me. If there's concern about my stability, the probate court handles that. Me. No petition has been filed. Me. No guardianship hearing scheduled. Whitaker nodded once. Whitaker. That's correct. Linda's control was thinning now. Not dramatically. Just enough. Well, she hadn't expected resistance backed by record numbers and embossed seals. Megan looked between us, her voice smaller. Megan. Mom, did you tell the bank Dad was not capable? Linda hesitated. Just a second too long. Linda. I said he'd been forgetful. Forgetful. I reached into the folder again and removed one more sheet. A simple letter from Halpern's office, printed cleanly. Me. For clarity, and any attempt to encumber the property without my consent would be void. Me. That's from my attorney. Not a threat. A boundary. The temperature in the hall felt warmer now, though the windows rattled with wind. The hum of the coffee urn sounded louder than before. Community shifts are subtle. People don't announce them. They lean back. They fold arms. They look at a speaker differently. Linda felt it. Linda. So what, Frank? That you embarrass me publicly? Me. You changed my locks publicly. Silence followed that. Not dramatic, just undeniable. I softened my tone. Me. I didn't come here to humiliate you. Me. I came to correct the record. Whitaker set the deed down carefully. Whitaker, as far as the association is concerned, ownership is clear. Whitaker, we'll update our file. Administrative. Final. Linda's shoulders dropped a fraction. Not defeat. Calculation. She understood something now. Yes, this wasn't about emotion. It was about sequence. She'd moved first. I'd moved last. Megan approached me slowly. Megan. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Me. Because I didn't know I had to defend myself. Her eyes watered slightly, but she blinked it back. Cody tugged at her sleeve. Cody. Grandpa, are we still fishing next summer? I crouched to his level. Me. If you want to. He grinned, unaware of adult wars fought in polite rooms. I stood again and faced Linda one more time. At me. You can keep the house in town. Me. You can keep the narrative you prefer. Me. But the cabin stays honest. Her lips pressed thin. Linda. You always did care more about this place than me. I shook my head slowly. Me. No. Me. I just care about what's mine. And for the first time that night, she had nothing prepared. And for the first time that night, she had nothing prepared. The dinner dissolved into small conversations and careful glances. Plates shifted, chairs scraped, and people returned to casseroles as if ham could absorb tension. Linda didn't approach me again. She stayed near the coffee urn, speaking in low tones to two women from church. The same women who'd once asked me to fix a broken railing at the fellowship hall. I didn't stay long. I shook Whitaker's hand, nodded to Ron, touched Megan's shoulder lightly on my way out. Outside, the air was sharper, cleaner. The wind carried the scent of lake water and distant wood smoke. Humiliation feels heavy when you're alone. It feels lighter when it's measured against fact. I drove straight to the cabin. Linda's SUV was gone this time. The porch light was off. The chrome lock still caught the moonlight. I stood there a moment, listening. No voices, no car doors. Just the lake shifting against the dock. From my coat pocket, I pulled out a small cardboard box. Inside it was a new lock set. Matte black, solid brass core. Halpern had been clear earlier that afternoon. And Halpern. As sole owner, you can secure your property. Halpern. I suggest documenting the change. So I had. I'd taken photographs of the chrome lock from every angle. Time-stamped. Stored. Simple documentation. Now I removed the screws carefully. The metal felt cold and resistant at first, then loose. When the old lock dropped into my palm, I held it for a second. It wasn't just hardware. It was a message. I installed the new lock slowly. I tightened each screw until it sat flush against the pine. Then I stepped back. Ownership isn't loud. It's steady. Inside, the cabin smelled like dust and cedar. No signs of disturbance. No boxes packed. No furniture moved. Linda had changed the lock, not the life inside. I walked through each room, touching surfaces lightly. The kitchen counter, the fireplace mantel, the photo of Megan at 8, holding a bluegill twice the size of her hand. In the bedroom, the quilt Linda's mother made still lay folded at the foot of the bed. I didn't remove it. This wasn't about erasing her. It was about boundaries. I sat at the small kitchen table and pulled out my phone. Me. Linda, I've secured the cabin. Her reply came minutes later. Linda, you're making this worse. Me. No. Me. I'm making it clear. Another pause. Linda. Megan's upset. Me. She deserves the truth. I didn't add more. Silence can be more instructive than argument. Man, I walked out to the dock. The boards felt rough under my boots. The water reflected thin strips of moonlight. The air carried that late October chill that seeps through denim. This place had held birthdays, arguments, reconciliations. It had witnessed storms and calm water alike. It would witness this, too. In my coat pocket, alongside the new keys, was another envelope. This one wasn't from the county. It was from Halpern's office, draft separation papers. I hadn't told Linda yet. But revenge doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like paperwork filed quietly. I sat at the edge of the dock and looked back at the cabin. 40 years of marriage doesn't dissolve in one night, but trust can. Linda had tried to move first, tried to reshape ownership, reputation, control. She underestimated one thing. I don't forget the things that matter, and I don't sign what I haven't read. The wind picked up, pushing small waves against the posts. While for the first time since that chrome lock refused my key, I felt steady, not triumphant, not bitter, just aligned. Inside my jacket, the separation documents rested flat against my chest. And unlike the lock she changed, this decision wasn't reversible. And unlike the lock she changed, this decision wasn't reversible. The next morning broke cold and pale. Thin light slid through the cabin windows, catching dust in the air like drifting ash. I made coffee the way I always had, a percolator on the stove. No pods, no shortcuts. The smell filled the kitchen, strong, familiar, steady. My phone buzzed before the second cup. Megan, Dad, can we talk? Me, come to the cabin. She arrived an hour later with Cody in the back seat and tension riding shotgun. Her eyes were tired. She hadn't slept much. She stepped inside slowly, like the cabin might reject her too. Megan, Mom said you embarrassed her. Me. I corrected her. Cody ran toward the back porch. I'm already asking about fishing poles. Children adapt faster than adults. Megan sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't sipped. Megan, she told me you were planning to sell. Megan, that you'd been forgetting bills. Megan, that the bank flagged something. I slid a printed statement across the table. Clean, highlighted. Me, no missed payments. Me, no flagged accounts. Me, no court filings. She scanned the page. Her jaw tightened. But Megan, why would she say that? There it was. The crack. I didn't rush to fill it. Me, what did she ask you to sign? Her head snapped up. Megan, just a draft. Something about being added to the deed. Megan, she said it was temporary. Temporary ownership. That's not how property works. Me, did you sign? She shook her head slowly. Megan, it didn't feel right. I nodded once. Me, good. Silence stretched between us, but this time it wasn't hostile. It was processing. But Megan looked around the cabin, at the framed photos, at the wood stove, at the marks on the wall where she and I once measured her height with pencil lines. Megan, she said you were slipping. Me, I'm not slipping. Me. I'm stepping back. She frowned slightly. Megan. From what? I reached into my jacket and removed the envelope from Halpern's office. Not dramatic, not forceful, just placed it on the table. Me. I've filed for legal separation. Her eyes widened. Miss Megan. Already? Me. Paperwork takes time. So does patience. She looked at the envelope like it might burn her. Megan. Is this because of the cabin? I leaned back in my chair. Me. It's because of trust. Me. You don't change locks on someone you trust. Me. And you don't question someone's sanity to move paper. Her shoulders dropped. Outside, Cody laughed at something only children find funny. Megan pressed her fingers against her temples. That's Megan. She said she was protecting me. Me. From what? No answer came. The wind rattled the windows lightly. The cabin didn't feel divided. It felt anchored. Megan finally looked at me fully. Megan. Are you really okay? Me. Yes. Me. And I'm not angry. That surprised her more than anything. Me. Anger fades. Me. Documentation lasts. She gave a small, tired laugh. Megan. You sound like Grandpa Harold. I allowed myself a faint smile. Not me. He was right about one thing. Megan waited. Me. Always keep one thing in your own name. Her eyes softened. Megan. Mom doesn't know about this yet, does she? I shook my head. Me. She will. Right on cue, my phone vibrated. Linda. I stepped outside to take the call. The air felt sharper than yesterday. The lake darker. Linda. Megan's at the cabin. Me. Yes. Linda. You're turning her against me. Me. No. Me. I'm giving her information. She exhaled hard. But Linda, you think paperwork makes you right? I looked out at the water. Me. It makes me accurate. A long pause. Linda. You filed something. It wasn't a question. Me. Yes. Her voice shifted. Not loud. Not hysterical. Just thinner. Linda. You're really going to do this? Me. You started it when you changed the locks. The wind moved through the pines, steady and indifferent. Linda didn't argue. She didn't apologize either. No, she just said quietly, Linda, you always choose principle over peace. I considered that. Me. Peace without respect isn't peace. The line settled between us. I ended the call. Behind me, the cabin door opened and Megan stepped onto the porch. She looked from me to the lake. Megan, what happens now? I slid the new key into the matte black lock and turned it smoothly. Clean click. No resistance. Me. Now, I said, we let the truth settle. And for the first time since this started, the cabin felt like mine again. And for the first time since this started, the cabin felt like mine again. By Monday morning, the town had adjusted. Not loudly, not with announcements, but the tone had changed. At the hardware store, the cashier handed me my receipt without that careful smile people use when they think you're fragile. Cashier, cold snap coming. Cashier, you winterizing early? Me, already ahead of it. He nodded. Normal. No pity. Reputation doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes. Then it stabilizes, Linda called that afternoon. Linda. Halpern contacted me. Me. He would. Linda. You're serious? Me. I don't file paperwork casually. There was a long exhale on the other end. Linda. You could have handled this privately. Me. You could have asked for a key. Silence answered that. She shifted tactics. Linda. Megan's confused. Linda. She thinks I lied. Me. Did you? Her voice tightened. Linda. I was trying to secure her future. There it was again. Protection as justification. Me. By questioning mine? She didn't respond directly. Linda. You embarrassed me. Me. You underestimated me. That line stayed between us. Later that evening, Megan stopped by the house in town. Linda's house now, though my name was still on the mortgage. She called me afterward. Megan. Mom admitted she spoke to the bank. Megan. She told them you'd been forgetful. I closed my eyes briefly. Me. Did they act on it? Megan. No. They asked for medical documentation. Paper. Always paper. Megan's voice softened. Megan. She thought if I was on the deed, things would be simpler. Me. For who? She didn't answer. There's a difference between protecting someone and positioning them. Linda hadn't been preparing Megan, yet she'd been preparing control. That night I drove back to the cabin alone. The sky was clear, stars sharp over the lake. The temperature had dropped enough to frost the dock boards. Inside, the air was colder than before. I lit the fireplace and listened to the crackle of dry wood catching flame. Heat spreads slowly. So does truth. I took out the final document from Halpern's envelope, an updated will. The previous version had left everything jointly to Linda. Simple, predictable. The new version was different. The cabin would transfer directly to Megan upon my passing. No joint ownership during my lifetime. No restructuring. No ambiguity. Clear succession. Clean line. Signed. Witnessed. Notarized. I had replaced something too. Not the locks. The will. I set the papers back into the folder and looked around the room. Linda's quilt still rested at the foot of the bed. Her coffee mug still sat in the cabinet. Separation doesn't erase history, and it redraws the future. My phone buzzed again. Linda. I answered. Linda. Do you hate me? The question caught me off guard. Me. No. A small pause. Linda. Then why won't you bend? I watched the fire shift inside the stove. Me. Because bending becomes breaking. She was quiet for a long moment. Linda. I thought you'd fight. Me. I did. Not with volume, not with insults, with documentation, with patience, with timing. Linda's voice softened. Linda. I didn't think you'd leave. Me. I didn't think you'd lock me out. The fire popped softly behind me. Linda exhaled. Linda. What happens to us? I looked at the framed photo of Megan at 8 years old, holding that bluegill like she'd conquered the lake. Me. We become honest. There was no answer to that. We ended the call without anger, just distance. Outside, frost thickened along the dock. Inside, the cabin held steady. Control is loud when it's insecure. Confidence is quiet, and for the first time in weeks, I felt neither humiliated nor defensive. I felt decided. I felt decided. The first snow came early that year. Not a storm, just a thin, steady fall that turned the shoreline white and softened the edges of everything it touched. I woke before sunrise and stepped onto the porch with a mug of coffee. The air cut clean through my sweater. The lake was quieter under frost, like it respected the season. The new lock caught the pale morning light. Matte black, firm, unapologetic. I turned the key once just to feel it move. Smooth, certain. In town, the separation papers were already filed with the county court. Process served, dates assigned, no shouting required. Linda had called less. When she did, her voice carried something unfamiliar. Not anger, absence. We met once more at the house in town to sort through practical things. Furniture, accounts, the mortgage. The kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner and old habit. Linda stood across the counter from me, arms folded. Linda, you're really keeping the cabin? Me, yes. Linda, and you've changed your will? It wasn't a question. Me, yes. She nodded slowly. Linda, you always did move quietly. I didn't answer. There are arguments you win loudly. There are lives you reclaim silently. Megan handled the conversation better than I expected. But Megan, I don't want the cabin now. Megan, I want you both stable. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Me, it will be yours someday. Me, but not as leverage. Linda looked down at that. She had tried to secure the future by rearranging the present. She miscalculated the foundation. A week later, she returned her key to the house mailbox in a small envelope. No note inside. Just metal. I didn't gloat, didn't comment. Some victories don't need witnesses. When back at the cabin, I winterized the pipes, stacked firewood higher, covered the boat. Routine steadies a man. On the final afternoon before heavy snow was forecasted, I walked to the dock one last time for the season. The boards were stiff beneath my boots. The lake had turned a darker blue, nearly steel. I stood at the edge and let the cold bite at my face. 40 years of marriage had not ended with screaming. It ended with a lock and a deed. I thought about that first night, on the chrome handle, the humiliation, the motel room. I realized something then. Humiliation only lasts if you accept the story someone writes for you. I chose to write my own. Behind me, the cabin stood quiet and patient, not triumphant, not bitter, just present. I slipped the key into my pocket and looked across the frozen shoreline. Some locks aren't meant to keep people out. They're meant to show you who was never inside. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.